The cumulative crimes of Herman Webster Mudgett, alias Dr. HH Holmes, were a tragedy that no one could detect, until it was too late. When detectives caught up with Holmes, the following trial became a national, even international sensation, the likes of which cast an evil spotlight on an already negatively reputed Chicago, shocked Americans with a glimpse of what a person could be capable of so close to home, and ultimately created a legend unlike any other. (1888) During the course of a few months in the latter part of the year, a number of prostitutes were found murdered in the Whitechapel district of London, England, all suffering from similar inflictions. The supposed culprit, whose moniker was Jack the Ripper, would roam the streets in dark alleys in the night and search out unsuspecting victims who might be drunk and vulnerable. The story of these crimes received much media attention in Europe and all over the world, including America. The story of Jack the Ripper was frightening and shocking to the general public, as such a tale had never been published as fact before. The only relief to be found in the hearts of Americans was that this tragedy was only occurring overseas in England. The idea of a multi-murderer was born. 1893. The Colombian Exposition, a world's fair to commemorate the 400th anniversary of Columbus discovering the New World, attracted millions of international visitors and attention. Proving it rose itself from the ashes of the Great Fire, Chicago put on a fair of great magnitude, constructing many elaborate buildings, statues, fountains, and exhibits. The fair, nicknamed the White City, was the largest one that had ever been held before, and was the first to have a separate section, the Midway Plaisance, for lowbrow attractions and vulgar shows to serve the 28 million visitors that would pass through. The fair exhibited not only the achievements of the city, but also the vices. After visiting the fair, William T. Stead wrote a book entitled If Christ Came to Chicago, and condemned the city's immoral practices and pride that it had in them. Chicago was known for its violence and illegal activity in the late 1800s. In 1886, many died from a bomb explosion in the chaos of the Haymarket riot, and in 1893, the very mayor of Chicago was shot on his doorstep. In the hugger-mugger of the fair, it would have been impossible to track all the missing persons, let alone discern the cause of their demise. Many visitors to the fair came alone, leaving their families only with the information that they would be staying somewhere in or around Chicago. Englewood, a thriving suburb of Chicago, hosted many visitors in its various hotels. One proprietor of such was Herman Webster Mudgett, who had changed his name to Dr. Henry H. Holmes upon moving to Chicago. Holmes moved to Chicago with a degree from the Medical College of Ann Arbor in Michigan and sought out work as a pharmacist. Holmes acquired the land for his enormous building, which upon its completion the town nicknamed the Castle, at the corner of 63rd and Wallace in the mid-1880s, after gaining ownership of a small pharmacy on the opposite corner, when the dying druggist's wife mysteriously went missing. Holmes' new building would host a variety of normal businesses, including a restaurant, drugstore, shops, and hotel rooms, though it was constructed under peculiar circumstances. Workforces were consistently hired and fired until the completion, allowing him to pay little, if anything, for its construction, and also keeping the full plan of the structure only to himself. The layout of the second floor in the three-story building had features of sinister design and purpose. There were rooms fitted with gas lines for asphyxiation, trapdoors, winding hallways, doors and staircases leading to nowhere, and hidden chutes leading to the cellar. The cellar housed vats of acid, a quicklime pit, and furnaces, in addition to an operating table and a human stretching machine. Holmes placed ads looking for secretaries, and strangely needed new ones often. During the fair, Holmes hosted many visitors, as Englewood had several incoming train lines, and tourists just wanted to sleep in the most convenient place after the long trip. Holmes chose patrons at his whim to torture or kill, even selling skeletons for profit. These were people that had no one who knew exactly where they were, and so Holmes' crimes went undetected during the fair.
After the Great Fair came and passed, creditors were closing in on Holmes, so he left Chicago. Holmes had committed insurance fraud numerous times before to gain money by taking out policies on people before killing them, and so he decided to do it once more. He proposed the idea to a struggling Ben Peitzel, who was desperately trying to support his wife and kids. The plan would be to fake Ben Peitzel's death at a phony patent office in Philadelphia using a badly burned corpse, and have a customer happen upon the body and report it to the police. He would then split the insurance money between himself and Peitzel. Ben's wife, Carrie, tended to the children while the scheme was going on. Alice Peitzel, the eldest daughter, accompanied Holmes to identify the body of Peitzel at the morgue and collect the money. The plan began to unravel when police got a tip that the death of Peitzel was a scheme to commit insurance fraud. Holmes told his complete plan to a tipster earlier and promised him a cut of the deal. Holmes neglected to send him his portion. Detectives of the Pinkerton agency were now on the hunt for Holmes. Holmes had been traveling with the Peitzel children now in his custody, stopping in various places, including Vermont, Ohio, Detroit, Indianapolis, and Toronto. Holmes was finally arrested in Boston on November 17, 1894, traveling alone without the Peitzel children anymore. The search now focused on finding the children, while Holmes stayed in prison and admitted to the insurance fraud. Detective Frank P. Geyer of the Pinkerton agency soon unraveled the details of the crime. Holmes had actually killed Benjamin Peitzel and used his body for the insurance scheme. As Holmes was evading the detectives, he strangled the Peitzel boy, Howard, and burned his body, leaving the remains in the furnace of an Indiana house. Later on their journey, the two girls, Alice and Nellie, were lured into a trunk that Holmes then locked and pumped gas into to asphyxiate them. Holmes removed their bodies and poorly buried them in the cellar of a rented house in Toronto. The detectives traced Holmes back to Chicago and investigated the castle. The police found bones from countless people scattered in the basement and discovered the peculiarities of the second floor and the methods of destruction in the basement. The details of the case became widely published all across the country. The story was especially big in Philadelphia and Chicago, where most of the crimes had been committed. The story even became international, getting coverage in South Africa, for instance. The Chicago Castle now became known as the Murder Castle and attracted curious onlookers. The castle was destroyed by a fire on August 19, 1895, though the origin unknown. While in prison, Holmes wrote a biography of his life, attempting to cover up the crimes he committed and counter the case of the district attorney. This biography was published and offered for sale. On September 12, 1895, Holmes was indicted for the murder of Benjamin F. Peitzel and pled not guilty. When Carrie Peitzel was testifying on the stand during the trial, her story moved the entire courtroom to tears, though Holmes remained unemotional. Holmes only broke down when his current wife, Georgiana Yoke, entered the courtroom. The jury didn't fall for his sudden presence of emotion and consecutively convicted him of murder in the first degree on the last day of the trial on November 2, 1895, and on November 30th was sentenced to be hanged. Awaiting his execution in prison, Holmes wrote a detailed confession claiming to have committed 27 murders, which was published in the Philadelphia Inquirer and other newspapers around the country on April 12, 1896. Holmes was hanged on May 7, 1896, in Philadelphia. Holmes' accumulation of murders was a tragedy not only for the Peitzel family and the other families of his victims, but also for Chicago as a city. The whole case was a national and even international story that brought the strange tale of Jack the Ripper close to home. Chicago at the time already had a negative reputation regarding crime and vice, and the Holmes case only magnified it. Holmes was America's first widely publicized serial killer, though the term had yet to be coined at the time, and it was tragic for him to be so closely connected to Chicago. This was a case that inspired and continues to inspire the creation of countless books and novels, movies, magazines, articles, and other formats of stories, including a 1930s mystery radio program and accompanying record. Many more serial killers have followed HH Holmes, and it must be considered that his case started the problem in America. Two serial killers, Dr. Michael Swango and Dr. Harold Chipman, both healthcare multi-murderers, reportedly owned a copy of a book written about H.H. Holmes, and were unfortunately inspired by his crimes. The case remains as an unmatched legend, and in the words of the detective,
one of the most marvelous stories of modern times.
It was truly a tragedy for the city of Chicago.